This is a reporter for the NHL's Minnesota Wild, okay? And now it's trending that she is no longer with us. And this is the NHL, the National Hockey League, okay? So the NHL's mourning her death as she was a reporter for the Minnesota Wild. Her and her three children died from a house fire, okay? Now, I put this fake world logo here in the thumbnail because some of these things that I noticed are just odd. When we get these stories, and we just look a little bit at the story and we see some things, and it's like, that's interesting. That connects with this other thing that's trending. As I have this kind of gift and a curse to see a lot of this stuff within the language as well. And then I kind of connect the dots, and it's like, then I make these videos, right? So this was Saturday. Having learned of the news before the game against the Dallas Stars, the Wild returned to the ice for practice on Monday with their hearts and minds still heavy from the tragedy. So they learned about this news before the game on Saturday against Dallas. And remember, we're in the month of March, right? It says right here that March is her birthday. It doesn't give a specific day. It says based on her age at death, age 37, it says she was born between March 98 and March 88 and March 1989, right? So I guess they don't have a specific day, but they're saying her birthday was in March. And now we get this story that the team or whatever learned about her death Saturday, March 21st. So connected with her birthday. So to me, that's like a red flag, right? That's a red flag right there, okay? Now, you could say, okay, that's a coincidence, but you know that I have more. So look, she was age 37, right? She covered the Wild as a correspondent for NHL.com for the past decade and was a prominent podcaster among several roles she held in sports media in the Twin Cities area. So look, she was 37. When I'm looking at the article and I scroll down, look at it shows that the Wild acquired center Michael McCarron in a trade with the Nashville Predators. This was earlier in the month. It says articles related to this story. Okay? Look at Michael McCarron's birthday. It's March 7th, the third month and the seventh day. So 3-7, the Wild acquire him. That's his birthday. And then Jessi Pierce dies at age 37. I don't know if I said her name. Yeah, Jessi Pierce, age 37. So look, 3-7, 3-7. It's still up here. It's right in the middle of the article here. She dies in a house fire with her three kids. Now look, see, I scroll down. It says related stories right there. Wild acquire center Michael McCarron. And, they find out before this game against Dallas. I could probably click on these other stories and see other connections. That's just the first one I clicked on. Isn't that interesting? So then you add that to her dying right around her birthday, and even her birthday, who knows? It could be that 3-7, right? As Michael McCarron, now a member of the Minnesota Wild, acquired from the Nashville Predators. Okay, now I thought this was worth adding in here because remember we had the ICE agent shoots and kills a woman, and then a man killed by ICE, Minnesota. And now we get this death with the Minnesota ICE hockey connection with this NHL correspondent or reporter. So I thought that was interesting. Minnesota known for ice. Look at the road with the image. Was it Renee Good or whatever her name was? And I can't remember the guy's name that was killed, but you get the Minnesota ice connection. Those stories were trending. Now we get this story trending. The stuff is with the language, with these patterns, I'm telling you. Now notice they found out about this death before the game Saturday, March 21st against Dallas. Well, look, after that game, it shows that was their 71st game. Going into the game, they had played 70 games. They learn about this death. Fire equals 70 in the reverse cipher. And Saturday had a 70-date numerology. 3 plus 21 plus 20 plus 26 equals 70. Fire equals 70. Right? So, right? 19 plus 12 is 31, plus 40 is 71 after the fact. So before that game, you had 70 games played for the Wild. Even Minnesota has the 52 like house fire, 38 like fire. Now we get this story by the language that's hitting. And if this is a true story and it's not just a story pumped out and they all got to follow the role, because she could blend in and just be removed from the team. She could just blend in somewhere. Nobody would probably recognize or realize, right? Oh, she died, they're not really looking out for her. Or if this did happen, what a tragedy, because somebody would have made it happen, which is very tragic with the loss of her and her 3 children, right? So either way, how are these patterns explained? To me, these stories it's just like algorithm and connections and the patterns, and it's like recycled stories. That's what I think. And this also connects to the Air Canada jet that crashed into the fire truck at LaGuardia Airport in New York. As that was, a fire truck, right? Crashed into a fire truck in New York. And you get this house fire, but Minnesota is the Twin Cities. And then it makes you think of the Twin Towers with the 9/11 connection with the plane. Look at this eerie photo here. Twin Cities. Look, that looks like a plane and there's buildings. And Twin Cities, Twin Towers. We don't know if that was AI even. That might have been AI way before they told us about it. But you get the Twin City, Twin Tower connection with Minnesota and New York with that twin connection. And, they tell us right in this story, firefighters responded to 911 calls early Saturday from neighbors reporting flames coming through the roof of this single-family home in White Bear Lake, a suburb about 10 miles northeast of where the Wild play in downtown St. Paul. That's one of the Twin Cities. And look, firefighters, 911 obviously connected, and you get 9/11. Remember, they were telling us, oh, the heroes, the firefighters. and NYPD and all of that. So look at this stuff with the language here. Right, there's the article. I just added, there was a fire truck involved. I added it right there, an extra image there. And that's amazing because Canada is known for hockey. And that's Air Canada. So isn't that amazing? And you can see in that video I pointed out, Canada equals 39 like New York. Come on, right? Wow, I just caught that Canada connection. Remember, the USA played Canada in the Winter Olympics in hockey. And those were like trending stories. Man, look at that. So I just catch that Canada connection even. Man. And 9/11 was in 2001, right? Like 21. Wild equals 21. There's probably a Dallas Stars connection. Dallas has the double L, which kind of looks like two towers, which is, kind of interesting. There's probably more there as well. It looks like they have 11 overtime losses at that time Saturday. But wow, right? Wow, no, look at the image there, 37 degrees. Look at this. I'll try to make it bigger. Look at the temperature down in the bottom left, 37 degrees. The news, that image coming from the news. Look at that. So remember, she was age 37. Michael McCarron picked up from Nashville, his birthday 3/7. So look, there's another 37, even with the news there. And here's the 118, Jessi Pierce 118. 76ers equals 118 as the 76ers are trending with Andre Drummond getting fined. Look at all these LeBron videos with all of his connections I've made recently. King James has the 55 like Jessi Pierce. Remember, Satan equals 55 as well. You may think of Satan, you may think of hell, you may think of fire. This is a house fire. I think the 118 has landed in several other decodes as well. It connects with Cancer that equals 118. The OnlyFans, like majority owner or whatever, he just died of cancer. Cancer equals 118. And there may be some other 118s as well that are circulating. Okay. One more connection here. You can see that it's one reporter killed, 3 children, 1, 3, and Dallas equals 13. They find out before the Dallas game that she died with her 3 kids, and Dallas has 113 like 13. Minnesota equals 133, which is kind of like 13. Wow. That's too many connections, okay? For this not to be fabricated in some way or just kind of like scripted out, whether there are deaths or not, either way.
A devastating scene outside Minneapolis after a house fire here with 4 people found dead inside. NHL reporter Jessi Pierce and her 3 young children. Officials say neighbors called 911 early Saturday morning when they saw flames coming out of the roof. The fire chief saying our hearts ache for all those involved in this tragedy. Neighbors in shock.
They were good kids. So it's sad.
Pierce, who was 37, covered the Minnesota Wild for more than a decade, a fixture at games, with the team calling her a dedicated ambassador for the game of hockey and a kind, compassionate person that cared deeply about her family and those around her.
Hello, good morning.
She also hosted a hockey podcast and contributed to NHL.com, which said Pierce's lifelong dream was to become a hockey writer, remembering her as an absolute joy, occasionally bringing her kids to practice as a young mom. The NHL sending prayers and deepest condolences to Pierce's loved ones.
We thank you for...
And, she's not a significant person on the world stage. Man, they got tons of images of her. A lot of times, you may just get a couple of images. There's just tons of images of this character here. You know, a lot of times there's a few mixed up that aren't her. They just share the same name. It's just all her family. Look at that. You know, you would think she was like a top celebrity. She even has that USA jersey on right there. I was talking about USA versus Canada. See that right there? Yeah, a lot of images here. So they play today against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's interesting because couldn't Lightning spark a fire? Look, they're third in their division, and we're in the third month, and her 3 children died as well in this fire. Look at that. Can lightning cause a fire? Yes, lightning frequently causes fires. Isn't that interesting? You know, that is, huh? And here's the game here. They find out before this game against Dallas. Wow, the Wild have a solid record also. So, you know, possibly like some kind of sacrifice, huh? We'll see what happens to them going forward. Oops, forgot about that. Turn that off real quick. Thought I had something else here. Oh yeah, she died 73 days after the female died from the ice agents. Right? In Minnesota. Was it Renee Good or something like that? If I remember correctly, that was the first death of the ice stuff going on in Minnesota. She died 73 days after that death. And sacrifice equals 73. That's the same as 10 weeks, 3 days, which is like 13 as well. Okay? NHL mourns the death of Minnesota Wild reporter Jessi Pierce and her 3 children from a house fire. Yeah, I'm sure there's more to the story. That's what I have as far as my decode. Thanks for watching if you're still here. You know, thanks even if you just check out a few minutes. I'll see you in the next one.